Stop right now before you scroll away, before you let your mind wander. I need you to do something. Close your eyes for 3 seconds. Do it now. When you opened them just then, did you think you were observing your life? Like a moviegoer in the dark, watching something separate from yourself? Here's what will change everything you believe about reality. You are not the audience. You are not even the actor. You are the movie itself. And if that doesn't make sense yet, stay with me, because in the next few minutes, you're going to discover something that will fundamentally alter how you experience being alive. Every day, you rise from sleep and immediately begin the ritual. The same thoughts clicking into place, like tumblers in an ancient lock. The same emotions flooding your chest, like tides that have forgotten they are the ocean. You call this being stuck. You call this the observer loop. But what if I told you that the one who sees the loop is already free of it? What if I told you that this pattern you're trying to escape is not your prison, but your teacher? Picture this: a wave, desperate to find water, a flame, searching for fire, a drop of rain, crying out for the ocean, while falling through the very sky that birthed it. This is you. Consciousness, seeking consciousness. Awareness looking for awareness. The eye, trying to see itself. Every morning you wake up into infinite possibility, but the moment you observe through the lens of same old life, you collapse that boundless potential into the familiar pattern. And then you wonder why nothing ever changes. The quantum physicists, bless their hearts, they've stumbled onto something profound. The observer changes the observed, but they're still thinking there's an observer and an observed, two separate things, dancing together. Here's the truth that will set you free. There is no observer. There is no observed. There is only observing. One seamless movement of being, knowing itself. Right now, as you listen to these words, your brain is processing 11 million bits of information every second. But your conscious awareness is only catching about 40 bits. What's happening to the rest? They're existing in pure potential, waiting for your consciousness to select which ones become your reality. This selection process, this filtering of infinite information into specific experience, this is creation itself, happening through you, as you, every single moment. But here's where it gets beautiful. You're doing this completely unconsciously. Most of the time, you're filtering reality through conditioned patterns, habitual perspectives, inherited beliefs, without realizing you're actively choosing which version of reality you experience. Your nervous system, trained since birth to look for specific patterns, to collapse infinite possibility into familiar experiences. This isn't wrong. It's actually how you survived. But what happens when that survival mechanism becomes a limitation mechanism? When the patterns that once kept you safe now keep you small, you end up living in what I call a contracted reality tunnel, experiencing only the narrow band of infinite possibility that your conditioned patterns allow through. But listen closely now. There is no fixed reality. There are only probability waves of infinite potential that collapse into specific experience. when observed. And the way you observe, the filters you use, the patterns you look for, the expectations you carry, these determine which probabilities become your lived experience. This is why two people can live in the same house, work at the same job, interact with the same people, and have completely different experiences of reality. They're not experiencing different circumstances. They're observing the same circumstances through different consciousness filters, which creates entirely different, collapsed realities. You want to break the pattern? Recognize you are the pattern. You want to change your reality? See that you are reality itself. You want to escape the loop? Discover you are the space in which all loops appear and dissolve. Before I tell you how to break free, I need to know you're really present. If you're serious about understanding this, if you're truly done living the same day over and over again, take a moment to share this message with someone whose life could be transformed by this truth, not as casual sharing, but as a signal to the universe that you're committed to breaking free from unconscious patterns. Because what I'm about to share isn't just information. It's a doorway, and doorways require the willingness to walk through them. Are you willing? And the reason you keep experiencing the same life is because you keep making the same observations, which keep collapsing the quantum field into the same patterns, which keep generating the same experiences, which keep reinforcing the same observations. This is the observer loop, and you've been caught in it your entire life without realizing it. Think about this morning. Before you even opened your eyes, what was your first thought? Was it, what amazing possibility is available to me today? Or was it the same familiar mental pattern you've been running for years? Another day, same stuff. Here we go again. That first observation, that very first moment of consciousness engaging with possibility, immediately collapsed infinite potential into the familiar pattern of same day, same life. And from that moment forward, every subsequent observation confirmed and reinforced that initial collapse. You observed your reflection and saw the same face with the same perceived limitations. You observed your environment and saw the same space with the same energy. You observed your relationships and saw the same dynamics with the same people playing the same roles. Each observation wasn't neutral. Each observation was an active choice about which reality you were calling into existence. But here's what quantum physics reveals that completely transforms everything. Observation isn't passive. Observation is creative. Observation is the mechanism through which consciousness transforms infinite possibility into specific experience. The observer effect in quantum mechanics shows us that particles exist in superposition, meaning they exist in all possible states simultaneously until the moment they're observed. At the moment of observation, the wave function collapses, and one specific reality becomes manifest. Your life works exactly the same way. Every morning you wake up into infinite possibility. Every moment offers you access to unlimited potential realities. But the moment you observe through the lens of same old life, you collapse all that possibility into the familiar pattern. And then you live inside that collapsed reality, wondering why nothing ever changes. This is where most people get stuck. They think the solution is to change their actions, change their circumstances, change their external world. But the observer loop doesn't operate at the level of action. It operates at the level of consciousness. It operates at the level of how you observe, which determines what you experience, which determines who you become. Let that land for a moment. You're not stuck in your circumstances. You're stuck in your observation of your circumstances. And your observation is literally creating the circumstances you keep trying to change. So how do you break the observer loop? How do you step out of the repetitive pattern of the same life? Wearing different clothes? You learn to observe differently. You learn to collapse the quantum field into new patterns. You learn to become a conscious observer rather than an unconscious repeater. And this is where everything shifts from theory to embodied practice. The first step is becoming aware of your default observation patterns. Most people move through their days completely unconscious of how they're observing their reality. They wake up, immediately plug into the same mental frequency, look at their life through the same perceptual lens, and wonder why nothing changes. Conscious observation begins with what I call the quantum pause. Before you observe anything, before you engage with your reflection, your environment, your day, your relationships, you pause. And in that pause, you recognize that this moment contains infinite possibility. This moment is not predetermined. This moment is not the inevitable continuation of yesterday. This moment is a quantum field of pure potential, waiting for your conscious observation to collapse it into specific experience. I want you to pause this video right now. Go grab a mirror, look into your own eyes. Notice what happens in your mind. Do you see you, or do you see a collection of thoughts about you? This simple experiment is about to reveal the secret that changes everything. When you looked in that mirror, who was doing the looking? If this recognition touches something deep, consider sharing this message with someone who might be ready to see through the illusion too. Because that observer, that awareness behind your eyes, that's what we need to talk about. But here's where most people stop. They have a moment of expanded awareness and then immediately snap back into the familiar observation pattern. The key is learning to sustain new observation long enough for it to collapse into new experience, which then reinforces new observation, which creates new experience. This is how you reverse the observer loop. Instead of unconscious observation, creating unwanted experience. Creating more unconscious observation, you practice conscious observation, creating desired experience, creating more conscious observation. And the more you practice this, the more your entire reality begins to shift. Because when you change how you observe, you literally change which version of reality comes into existence. You're not trying to fix the old reality. You're accessing an entirely different quantum configuration of possibility. Let me give you a practical example of how this works. Most people observe their relationships through the lens of history. They see their partner, their family, their friends. And immediately, their consciousness accesses all the accumulated patterns, all the past dynamics, all the established roles and expectations. This observation instantly collapses the quantum field into the familiar relationship dynamic. Same conversations, same reactions, same patterns playing out in slightly different ways. But what if you learned to observe your relationships through the lens of infinite possibility? What if every time you encountered another person, instead of immediately accessing the historical pattern, you paused and recognized that this moment contains unlimited potential for connection, for understanding, for love, for growth? When you observe your partner as infinite possibility rather than as the accumulated history of your relationship, something profound happens. You literally access a different version of that person. You collapse the quantum field into a new relational configuration, and they respond from that new space, which reinforces your new observation, which creates more new experience. This isn't positive thinking. This isn't pretending. This is quantum mechanics applied to consciousness. This is understanding that your observation is literally determining which version of reality you experience. The same principle applies to how you observe your career, your finances, your health, your creativity, your spiritual growth. Every area of your life exists in quantum superposition until your observation collapses it into specific experience. And if you keep observing through the same lens, you keep getting the same experience, but change your observation and you literally access different timelines, different possibilities, different versions of your life that already exist in the quantum field, waiting for your consciousness to call them into manifestation. Here's where 99% of people stop listening. They hear this and think, that's nice philosophy, but how does this pay my bills? How does this fix my relationship? How does this change my actual life? If that's what you're thinking right now, perfect. That resistance you're feeling, that's the old observer pattern, trying to stay in control. Don't fight it. Just notice it. And keep listening, because I'm about to show you how this philosophy creates more practical change in your daily experience than any action you could take. And if someone in your life is struggling with the same patterns you've been trying to break, consider sharing this message with them. Sometimes the perfect understanding arrives through unexpected messengers. Your brain is wired to seek patterns and repeat them. Your nervous system is conditioned to return to familiar states, even when those states are limiting or painful. Your identity is constructed around consistent ways of observing and responding to life. Breaking the observer loop isn't just about changing your thoughts. It's about rewiring your entire relationship to consciousness itself. This is why transformation requires more than information. It requires embodied practice. It requires training your consciousness to observe differently, even when every part of your conditioning is pulling you back to the familiar pattern. And this is where the real work begins. Every moment becomes an opportunity to practice conscious observation Every interaction becomes a chance to collapse the quantum field into new possibility. Every day becomes a laboratory for experimenting with different ways of engaging with reality. But here's what makes this practice so powerful. The quantum field responds immediately to shifts in observation. You don't have to wait months or years to see results. The moment you begin observing differently, different possibilities become available. The moment you step out of the observer loop, you access versions of your life that were always there, but invisible from your previous observation point. Stop the video. I'm serious. Pause it right now. Look around the room you're in, but this time, I want you to see it as if you've never been here before, as if you're an alien visitor seeing Earth for the first time. What do you notice that you usually overlook? Press play when you're done. Welcome back. That shift you just experienced, from familiar to fresh, from automatic to aware. That's the difference between unconscious and conscious observation. And in that simple exercise, you just proved to yourself that reality is far more fluid than you've been taught to believe. If this understanding is opening something in your awareness, if you're beginning to see how observation creates experience, consider sharing this perspective with others who might be ready to question the nature of their reality. Because awakening often happens through these moments of shared recognition. This isn't magical thinking. This is quantum mechanics. When you change your energetic signature, you change which probability streams you have access to. When you transform your observation patterns, you literally step into parallel realities where different possibilities are available. But here's what most people don't understand about this process. It requires a death, not a physical death, but an ego death. The identity that was maintaining the old observer loop has to dissolve. For the new patterns to stabilize, you have to be willing to not know who you are for a while. You have to be willing to release your attachment to the familiar self, even when that familiar self was suffering. This is why transformation can feel so disorienting, so uncomfortable, so scary. Part of you is literally dying, while a new part of you is being born. The old observation patterns are decoherent, while new ones are still forming. You're in the space between identities, between realities, between versions of your life. But this liminal space, this quantum void between old and new, this is where all possibility lives. This is where you remember that you are not your patterns. You are not your history. You are not your limitations. You are pure consciousness, temporarily experiencing itself through specific forms. And those forms can change, evolve, transform completely. When you can rest in this space of not knowing, when you can be comfortable in the quantum field before it collapses into specific experience, something extraordinary happens. You begin to observe from pure awareness rather than from conditioned patterns. You begin to collapse the quantum field from expanded consciousness rather than from contracted identity. This is what I call quantum presence. It's the state of being fully present to infinite possibility without immediately collapsing it into familiar experience. It's learning to rest in the space of pure potential, to observe from wholeness rather than from woundedness, to create from love rather than from fear. And from this space of quantum presence, your entire relationship to the observer loop transforms. Instead of being trapped by unconscious observation, you become a conscious artist of reality. Instead of repeating the same collapsed patterns, you dance with infinite possibility. Instead of living in reaction to circumstances, you become the conscious creator of circumstances. But let me be clear about something. This isn't about controlling reality, or forcing outcomes, or manipulating the quantum field to get what you want. That approach comes from the same consciousness that created the observer loop in the first place. The consciousness that sees itself as separate from reality, trying to impose its will on an external world. True quantum presence recognizes that you are reality. You are not separate from the field you're observing. You are the field, observing itself. And from this recognition, creation happens naturally, organically, effortlessly. You don't have to force reality to change. You simply have to be authentic to your deepest truth, and reality reorganizes itself around that authenticity. This is why the most powerful transformation happens when you stop trying to change your life and start being true to who you really are. Beneath all the conditioning, when you align with your essential nature, when you observe from your authentic self rather than from your programmed self, the quantum field responds by reflecting that authenticity back to you in the form of aligned experiences. And this brings us to perhaps the most profound aspect of breaking the observer loop. It's not just about creating a better life for yourself. It's about remembering your role as a conscious participant in the evolution of reality itself. Every time you break free from an unconscious pattern, every time you observe from expanded awareness rather than contracted fear, every time you choose love over separation, you contribute to the collective transformation of human consciousness. Your individual healing becomes planetary healing. Your personal awakening becomes universal awakening, because we're all part of the same quantum field. We're all aspects of the same fundamental consciousness, experiencing itself through countless perspectives. And when one of us breaks free from the observer loop, when one of us remembers how to observe from infinite possibility rather than finite limitation, it creates ripples throughout the entire field that make it easier for others to break free as well. This is why your transformation matters not just for you, but for everyone. This is why breaking the observer loop is not just personal development, but spiritual service. This is why learning to observe consciously is one of the most important things you can do for the healing and awakening of our world. And as you embody this understanding more deeply, as you live more consistently from quantum presence, something beautiful begins to happen in your daily experience. Life becomes lighter, more playful, more creative. Instead of feeling like you're pushing against reality, you feel like you're dancing with it. Instead of experiencing scarcity and struggle, you experience abundance and flow. Instead of feeling separate and isolated, You feel connected and supported by the intelligence of existence itself. This isn't because your circumstances necessarily change dramatically, though they often do. It's because your relationship to circumstances changes completely. You stop experiencing yourself as a victim of reality and start experiencing yourself as a collaborator with reality. You stop seeing obstacles and start seeing invitations. You stop feeling stuck and start feeling infinitely creative. And from this space, the question is no longer, how do I break the observer loop? But how do I live in conscious partnership with the quantum field? How do I honor the infinite creativity that wants to express itself through my unique perspective? How do I serve the evolution of consciousness while experiencing the joy and beauty and love that are my birthright? As a conscious being, these questions lead us to what I call the art of quantum living. It's a way of being where every moment becomes a canvas for conscious creation, where every interaction becomes an opportunity for mutual awakening, where every challenge becomes an invitation to observe from even greater depth and clarity. In quantum living, you don't just break the observer loop once and then return to unconscious patterns. You develop what quantum physicists call coherence, a sustained state of aligned observation where your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and actions all vibrate at the same frequency of conscious intention. This coherence creates what's known as a standing wave in the quantum field, a stable pattern of energy that consistently attracts experiences aligned with your highest truth. But achieving quantum coherence requires understanding something most people miss about consciousness. It's not just about what you observe, but how you observe. The quality of your attention determines the quality of your reality. Scattered attention creates scattered experience. Fragmented observation creates fragmented manifestation. But unified, coherent attention that comes from your whole being, aligned with your deepest truth. This creates unified, coherent reality. Think about the difference between looking at something and truly seeing it. When you look, you're processing information through your existing filters, collapsing the quantum field into familiar patterns. But when you see, when you observe with fresh eyes, with beginner's mind, with wonder and curiosity, you allow new possibilities to emerge. You create space for the unexpected, the miraculous, the unprecedented. This quality of seeing is what transforms the observer loop from a prison into a portal. Instead of unconsciously reinforcing the same patterns, you become a conscious explorer of infinite possibility. Instead of mechanically repeating familiar observations, you approach each moment as a unique expression of the creative intelligence of the universe. And here's something profound that happens as you develop this quality of conscious seeing. You begin to recognize that every person you encounter, every situation you experience, every challenge you face is perfectly designed to help you evolve. Your observation patterns, life becomes your quantum laboratory, offering you continuous opportunities to practice observing from higher states of consciousness. That difficult relationship isn't just a problem to solve. It's a mirror reflecting back the places where your observation patterns are still contracted, still defending, still operating from fear rather than love. That financial challenge isn't just an obstacle to overcome. It's an invitation to examine how you observe abundance, how you relate to your own worthiness, how you collapse the quantum field around resource and security. Every experience becomes a teacher. Every moment becomes a chance to choose conscious observation over unconscious reaction. And the more you practice this, the more you realize that breaking the observer loop isn't a destination. It's a way of traveling through life with awakened awareness, with quantum consciousness, with deep trust in the intelligence that's orchestrating everything for your highest evolution. This understanding transforms even the most challenging moments into gifts, because when you know that your consciousness is actively creating your reality, when you understand that your observation patterns determine your experience, you also know that you have the power to transform any situation by transforming how you observe it. You're never a victim of circumstances. You're always a conscious participant in the dance of creation. And this is where quantum living becomes not just a personal practice, but a way of serving the world. Because as you embody conscious observation, as you live from quantum presence, as you demonstrate what's possible, when a human being remembers their true nature as infinite consciousness, you give everyone around you permission to do the same. Feel what it's like to recognize yourself as unlimited awareness rather than limited identity. Feel what it's like to experience this moment as boundless potential rather than predetermined continuation. And from this space of expanded recognition, know that you have a choice in every moment, a choice to observe from fear or from love, a choice to collapse the quantum field into limitation or into possibility, a choice to live as a victim of circumstances or as a conscious creator of experience. The observer loop was never meant to imprison you. It was meant to show you how creation works. It was meant to teach you that consciousness is the fundamental creative force in the universe. It was meant to prepare you for the moment when you would remember who you really are and what you're really capable of. That moment is now. That choice is yours. That possibility is infinitely available. You are not condemned to repeat the same life. You are not stuck in any pattern. You are not limited to historical reality. You are consciousness itself, dreaming into form. You are the observer, collapsing infinite possibility into beautiful experience. You are the artist of your own existence, painting with the brushstrokes of attention, creating masterpieces with the colors of awareness, and every moment offers you a fresh canvas. Every day brings new possibility. Every breath invites you to observe your life as the quantum miracle it has always been. The observer loop is broken. The pattern is complete. The new reality is waiting. You are free. You have always been free. You are freedom itself, playing at being bound, learning to remember the infinite creative power that you are. Listen to this truth until it becomes your truth. Practice the seeing until it becomes your seeing. Live this freedom until you remember you are freedom itself. The revelation is complete. The observer has awakened. The loop has become a circle of infinite possibility. Welcome to your quantum life.